to those who are watching another episode of Action Big Ideas, just learning like we were born to do. This is presented by the Thought Leader Academy and Rockstar Consulting, and I'm joined by Kendall today. Okay, so Kendall, what are we going to be talking about today?
Oh my gosh, of course. So basically, this topic for the podcast is going to be about change versus transition, navigating life shifts and finding meaning. Because I feel like that's where I am with regards to my work.
Right.
In what I'm doing, in every aspect, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's just myself. So yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so our agenda for today is understanding change versus transition, the role of challenges in change and transition, the 3 stages of transition and overcoming uncertainty, then the big one, transition versus transformation. And then let's look at how we actually what's our go-to method for this, so strategies for navigating change and transition. Then coming to terms with change and what it means to you. And last but not least, we always like to leave you with some action points so you can see the benefits of the content in your life. So that's the call to action and closing remarks. Okay, Kendall, take it away.
So with regards to change versus transition, with this topic, I actually kind of had like a hard time choosing a topic to actually speak about because it's like, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And then one of the sessions that I had with Talia, it was actually the first session, and then something clicked because she's like, just find people and then just absorb their content. So I found someone and I was listening to a podcast and they were describing, they were talking about...
Talia, your mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right, yes. And then you found someone?
And he was explaining change versus transition, and I was like, okay, I get that change it has to do with the outside, while transition has to do with the journey. But I was like, there's something missing, because if you're telling me or if you're explaining to me, okay, so for example, we'll just use a job. Let's go with my former role was in contact centers. So I went from an agent to a performance coach. Right. That was a change, right, in position. What was the journey? What was the transition? And I'm like, no, man, what else is there? Because if you look at it on a scale, like if you say, okay, Kendall, at a certain spot or point in your life, when you first started, you were an agent.
Right.
The change from agent to performance coach. In between that, what was the transition? How did that happen? What caused that change? And then the journey of transition.
That really resonates for me. I come from the contact center environment many moons ago, and I had to transition from agent to team leader, and from team leader to contact center manager to sales manager, etc. And these were big changes, and I only started to understand them after jumping through the hoop and understanding. I'll give you a very sad and funny story. My first interview to be a team leader, my team leader actually put me up for the position, and I really botched the interview. And they asked me, okay, so why did you apply for the position? I was like, Greg said I should come here. So they were like, geez, this guy's really lost. And fortunately I had a great recruiter who probed and asked some good questions, and they said, well, why do you think they're putting you up for this? And then we got into a discussion, and then I started going into the transition phase of understanding what that meant. Should I move to the next slide?
So,
is there more?
Before we do, right, I know you like to absorb pictures and all of that. I added this one because I want your intake on it.
I thought you were going to unpack. Okay, I'll unpack. So change and transformation. This person was a seed that's now emerging from the ground. And as they emerge, they have flowers and leaves on their head to show that they are growing out of the soil, but they are still human. And maybe it's symbolic of we should grow as nature grows and not be impatient humans. What do you understand from the image?
So when I was looking for an image, the image I was looking for was a seed.
Ah,
Because you can't, like, in order for a seed to become what it needs to become, you gotta bury it. It has to die, right?
yes.
And it also depends on the soil that it has to be planted in, the different types, because there's different types of soil. So I'm like, okay, change. How in heavens does what is the process, or how does that actually allow a person to evolve?
Yeah.
And if you look at the whole process of it, from the seed, from the death of something, and when something dies, something has to grow. So what is it that causes, or what that change in you, where something dies so that something can be reborn?
Ooh, that's beautiful. I think the death part is really beautiful because we have to understand in order to change or have a transition, we've got to say goodbye to old habits, old scenarios, old people. So I think, yeah, that's beautiful. That the way that you put that there, something has to die. And we don't necessarily need to mourn the thing that dies. A very simple example is, when I made the change of, being an employee to becoming an entrepreneur, the people around me changed because I changed my thinking. So it's your old thinking that would have to die. It's your old habits and behavior that would have to die in order to facilitate change.
That is so true. And I was busy because now I'm in the mode where I am taking in all of this content.
Yes.
And I was like, this one guy, Chris Stowe, I don't know if you know about him, but he's an entrepreneur and stuff like that. He does a lot. So I started following him and stuff. And then the way he describes himself is a loud introvert.
How's that? How's that?
And I'm saying that because I've always put myself in the category of I'm an introvert, but I come out when I'm around certain people.
Right.
And then that made me think, I'm like, no, because from the time I know myself and I'm looking back and I'm like, no, I've changed. Now put me in a space, put me on a stage, I can actually show who I am without having to go back into that shell. And I was like, Kendall, this is what we're doing, this is where we are.
I've seen both of those sides coming out, your introvert and your extrovert side. So in meetings, presentations, you're generally quiet. But if you're doing the presenting, then you're the authority on that, and you're speaking. And those don't seem to be characteristics of a pure introvert. So I consider myself an omnivert, and I believe you're the same way. So when the situation arises, when I'm on the stage and presenting, I'm bulletproof. And when I have to be silent and listen, and when I need to get away from people and noise and just be by myself, that's an introvert characteristic or trait. So I would say, it's not introvert, extrovert, what's the term? Omnivert. It's a little bit of both, depending on the situation. Yeah.
I like that. I really is like, I connect to this. I think we can. The role of challenges in change and transition. For me, I think it also goes back because, and like you said earlier on, your mindset. So I was looking at things as when I was faced with the challenge, I was like, why are these people or this thing, why is it coming up against me? What is it? And I'll be like, Lord God, give me the strength, because what is it that, like, if, let's just say there's a disagreement, what is it that makes this person think that, they can just say this and do that? Then I realized something. It wasn't about them, it was about me. It was an opportunity to show me what I'm capable of, what I need to change about myself, and stuff like that. So, and I think, you know what, I'm always going to go back into because that is a training ground for warriors. So,
oh, yeah. 100%.
And I think that's where that's what built me. Like, just, oh gosh. So I did change. Transformation for me is, like I said, when we'll use that same example, when I was feeling like, I'm going through a challenge, now it's like, okay, this is an opportunity. So whatever that was, that thing that was on the outside, it impacted me in a way to change my mindset so that when I'm growing or I'm on the journey in transitioning, I'm able to pick up certain things and be like, you know what, Kendall, this is what needs to change, or this is what's changing in you. So how, and I also think that transition, it's not just for you. It's never just for you. Because if you are going, or if you're in a place where you're around a lot of people, your journey or your story talks for you. Sometimes it's, I want to say sometimes it's an armor, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I realized that, you know what, the story that I have, because like during this week, I was like, Lord, why did I have to go through all of that, just to get here? I see it and I understand it, but now really, when you go and you explain, or you in a class, you in a room with a cluster of people,
Right.
and because I've been in a room where there's like people of high caliber, and they got these shiny suits, and then they tell you about their journey, and I'm like, where was your struggle? Because if they had to ask me about mine, I'd feel like it's a sad story.
Yeah.
Like,
And this is the thing, when people, put themselves forward, they of course talk about the best parts, and the part that actually made you who you are definitely were the challenges. You were in contact center, and now you service them from the outside in our business. And I would say it is definitely a training ground. And the main reason why is there are a lot of people and a lot of experiences that can be had in a short amount of time. Two things that stuck out for me when you were explaining this is the story with my first coach, Alison Godnier, and the mindset of just the masses, a typical person. And the contact center closed down, and it was about 1,000 jobs that went into retrenchment phase. And everyone walked out of it, and there were two mindsets that walked out: the masses, and there was my coach. When my coach walked out after getting the news, she said, "Oh, bless, I wonder what new wonderful opportunities are coming." And in a few days, her old partner teamed up, reached out to her, and they teamed up, and they were back in business. I had, the masses, other people that I knew from that contact center environment, months later, still messaging me, on Facebook, and reaching out and trying to look for work. So you see, if you don't embrace the thing that we consider to be negative, it'll hold us back for a lot longer than we need it to. And the other thing that has stuck out was just yesterday, we had a smash and grab. So we popped into the shop for about 10 minutes. We came out, somebody smashed in our window, stole my daughter's school bag and laptop. And, my wife is much better than this, than I am. It still took me a little while to make heads or tails of it, and then say, okay, we're insured, we can replace the stuff. Almost immediately, my wife had said that to the girls, because they were crying, and they were really upset by this, because we actually saw the guy running away from the car. It happened almost a fraction of a second. We just missed it, right? And so she moved on really quickly and didn't allow the emotional and mental side of it to bother her. And then after training and development and a bit of experience on my side, I was able to do it shortly afterwards. But most people would be devastated by this for a while, and some people actually, need to go to trauma counseling thereafter. So it's just testimony to exactly what you're talking about here, is we cannot view challenges as challenges. They are 100% opportunities.
So sometimes I would rather not have that opportunity, if I'm being honest, but it's what makes us. it either makes us or breaks us, and I refuse to be broken. So, okay, so this one here, I actually want your input on the picture first.
Ooh. Okay, so I've got. It's a DNA strand, right? A helix DNA strand. But it is growing out of rock, it seems, and still flowering. Beautiful, beautiful pink flowers in the sunset. So it's actually growth and transition to your very core on a cellular level. And then it also shouts out to me, when researching and studying metaphysics or the law of attraction or universal principles, that everything is light. Everything is made up of 99.99% light. The fraction of everything else is the physical part, the matter part of it. The rest of it is light and in a constant state of vibration. So when you're looking at, if I'm looking at your topic here, the 3 stages of transition and overcoming uncertainty, it would be that the change is not far outside or with people or situations. It's inside, and the deeper we go, the easier changes are going to be to manifest on the outside. So that's what I'm getting from this image is the environment doesn't matter. It's growing out of rock, and it's flowering from a DNA, and because it's flowering from a DNA perspective, you'll see it in far outreaches of your life experience.
Yes, I love that. So when I was actually coming up, when I was looking for all of this, I was like, because I went through the 3 stages of transition, and I'm like, the ending. Okay, so you're letting go of the past, right? But now, if you really sit, what does letting go mean? What? Because I was like, what is it? Is it a feeling? Is it an action? And it can be both. It is both. It depends on who you are and what you're about, your core values. So I'm like, okay, listen, I want stairs. I see stairs. And then, excuse me, that needs to be edited out. And I'm like, okay, our DNA has stairs, right? Well, it looks like stairs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're going through all of this, right, the challenges, the opportunity, the whole thing, there has to come a point where even your DNA has to let things go. And I'm like, okay. And then there was something that I actually came across. I was busy on social media, and this person said, I don't remember who it was. This person said that, have you ever felt like your inner core just needs deep rest?
That's depression, they call it. It's deep rest, yeah.
That's what it is. But I was like, you know what? I'm not depressed. I understand the feeling, but I don't acknowledge that depression is something for me. So instead, what I'll do is I will sit in that feeling and I'll let it go. And then you know how when we had that session in the beginning of TLA, where we created the space in our mind.
Oh yes, our workshop. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm like, I'm gonna go there. Whatever is trying to raise its head or trying to actually stay longer in my DNA that's not supposed to, that is trying to hold me back, I'm just gonna go bury it. I'm just gonna let it go.
Let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and die.
Yes. And then there's this thing called the neutral zone, right?
Yeah.
So it says the uncertain middle phase.
Right.
So now, if we're letting go of whatever we need to let go, then I feel like that's where the confusion kicks in. Because you're like, okay, what's my next step? How do I do this? What do I do? When? Why? That's where all the questions come in. And I'm like, why? Knowing me, I'm someone, if the questions come flooding in, then I need to take myself away from people, because that's when I become silent. Because me, I want answers. I'm forward. I'm forward. I need to know what's going on with me and how I can actually transition or move on. And remember before, I said I'm not someone who writes things down. I would rather have it in my mind. Now I'm like, okay, let's write this down.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out, because I figured that when I put it down on paper, it's nothing. It really, it has less meaning compared to when it's in my head, or when it's sitting with my feelings and my emotions, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect ink thoughts. You know, we can only hold a few items in our conscious mind. When we start listing them, we can really penetrate our mind and edit ideas. Something I saw as a post, there was a quote, I think this is, you know, perfect for today and for you, just going into silence. The quote was, "Silence is the fence surrounding wisdom." I just thought that was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. But yes, yeah.
Right, and then it says the new beginning, embracing the next chapter. So you've been through all of this,
Right.
and then you've answered all these questions, and now, based on your questions, you understand what you need to do, how you need to do it, when you need to do it. And then it's a matter of waiting. And I know that waiting is powerful, because when you sit in waiting, you're not just doing anything, you're not sitting still. For me, waiting is a place of rest, where I can be like, okay, you know what, since I know all of this based on that other thing, that other lesson, let's wait, let's be patient. But while we're waiting and we be patient, let's actually find or do some research, or, you know, do something that
Yes.
is gonna bring us to our next. So with that, before I even joined TLA, because I had left the call center, and I'm like, yo, Lord, what am I gonna do now? Because I don't want to sit at home. I don't want to not earn money. I don't want to not be able to, you know, provide and stuff like that. And then I actually came across TLA Rockstar on LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, boy, what is this? So I think I was gonna apply, and then I saw all this bunch of questions. I was like, I don't have time for this. I just need a yes or no. And then I left it. And then I think it was a month later, it popped up again.
So,
And I'm like, okay, Lord, this will not pop up again if it's not meant for me. And I remember I was sitting on my bed and I said, okay, I have nothing to do. Let me answer the questions. And it popped up to the exact same question I didn't want to answer. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And then after I did it, I got the response and I'm like, Aibo, are you sure for me? And then it made me think, like, when I was going through all of this, like putting the slides together, and I'm like, okay, you know what, God, clearly I'm in the part of transformation, because
Yes.
I have transitioned.
yes.
And I don't think I've ever told you that.
No. Thanks so much for sharing this. No, I actually had no idea. And you know, in our first meetings and sessions, when I was selecting who would get into TLA, Thought Leader Academy, it was all around synchronicity, alignment, the right people at the right time, and I really didn't know how on point it was for you. You're sitting down and pondering questions, and then the answers were coming to you. So with that in mind, I actually want to give you my hack on these notes, right? So my hack on these notes would be, I wouldn't follow this order. I would go and say, okay, so if you want change, there's a reason for it. There's always a reason. So it's always a positive or negative reason. So somebody might be challenged, they need change. Somebody might go through something really brilliant, a big promotion or something like that, and then they need to facilitate change. So whatever it is, there is a trigger first, right? And after there's a trigger, there's a goal. So you ask yourself, what do you want? And your question was, what I don't want to sit at home and do nothing. And once you ask yourself that question and then you answer it, opportunities start lining up. So then you happened to find the post. I say that's GOD, grand organized design. God, you know, if if you are spiritual or not. You know, being spiritual is not the same as religious, but if you believe in God or not, or if you just believe in the universe, that's what I believe. Is once you start putting it out there, it starts coming back to you, very much like the law of attraction explains, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe you first got to find the carrot. Once you find the carrot, then you start getting excited. And then once you start getting excited, you're going to have trouble with letting go of the past and embracing the next chapter. Consider those two wolves. So if you feed the past and be like, oh, I'm so comfortable doing this, you're going to slip into the past. And if you start feeding the carrot and embracing the new chapter, you're going to transition.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
Okay. Oops.
This is the part that I added because I'm like, okay, change, transition, but it doesn't just end there. It won't end there because the end goal is transformation. And once you get transformed, like, not only does it affect you, but it affects everybody else that's connected to you. So I was like, okay, what is transformation? If transition is your journey, is transformation the goal? Because transformation also comes with, I'd like to say, the good, because you can be transformed into someone who you never thought you'd be, and you can lose your values. Or you can transform into someone who you never thought you'd be, but by standing on your values, by standing on your core beliefs.
100%. 100% transformer. You know, today saw me like a blam. I don't know the words, but anyway. The transition and transformation for me is, one, you're in transit, you're in motion, and when you're in motion, it's easier to embrace change and it's easier to fall back into your old habits. So that's your test when you're walking the path. That's your test. Transformation is the end result. You're done now. You're done. You are reaping the benefits, you're reaping the rewards of actually going through that transition. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add that piece.
No, it's cool. And then I was thinking, like, because you're saying that transformation is the end, and then the end of what exactly? The end of who? Or is it just that you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish? Now you got to restart the process.
Yeah.
Because there's always a better version of you. I don't want to say better, but there's always a version of you that's better than who you
different. Let's say different. It's either better or worse. So if you look back 2 years ago, were you better or worse as a person? You know, some people may say better, some people say worse. Look at that result, and then do you like the result? Yes or no? Then what are you doing about it? Do something about it. But from most people that I know, even people that complain all the time, they're usually much better versions of themselves in the future.
True. And I was like, okay, so now, because the way I'm seeing my journey is I've transitioned. I'm on my way to transformation or transforming it, right? So who is it that I'm transforming into? Who is it that I'm going to be? Because my values are my beliefs. I stand firm on it. And then I was also looking at what is it that's around me while I'm transitioning into the transformed version of me that is adding or decreasing. Because you must also remember, when you're going through this period, your feelings can also have a go at you, your emotions, because however or whether you're emotionally inclined or declined, it also affects you, and it affects your surroundings. Like, for example, this is a journey, right? And sometimes you can take 5 steps forward, and then something happens and you take maybe 6 steps back. And then you gotta, it's more like, there's that, I don't remember the name of the game, but it had a pole, and on the pole was attached the tennis ball, and you had to stand and you had to hit the tennis ball.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called either.
And I was like, okay, so the way that I saw it is the version of who I am is playing against the version of who I'm gonna be. So who's gonna win?
Yeah, exactly. Which wolf? The negative one or the positive one? Yeah.
Strategies for navigating change and transition. I think we spoke about it, but accepting and acknowledging change, I think there's a difference. Well, there is a difference because when you accept it, you come into agreement with it. When you acknowledge it, you're just saying, I know that today. That's all you're doing. You can acknowledge it and you can turn a blind eye. And then you can be like, you know what, this is not for me. Thank you for showing me who you are, what you're capable of, but I like who I am now. Whereas accepting it as being like, okay, you know, let's do this together. The current version of who I am and the version of who I'm gonna be. You share your secrets with me and I'll share mine with you. And then finding meaning in struggles.
Mm.
I think that's it's more self-explanatory because everything has meaning, but you just have to be willing to actually look for it.
I just want to jump in there. There was some mentorship sessions that I had yesterday, and the topic that came up was personal power. And we went through an ink thoughts exercise. You know, you write down everything that helps your life and everything that hinders your life. So we could see that, clearly, after doing this with thousands of people, people find it very difficult to write down all the things that help their lives, and they find it very easy to write down all the things that they could complain about. And when we went through the exercise, the point of it was to see where, can you help me find the meaning in my struggles, or rather the benefit in them. So an item that I had in my hinder section many years ago was, before I was, in my own business, and I had to sit in traffic to get to a job, and I put down hinder traffic. And I had to look at what is the meaning of this struggle. And I'm going to give a very silly example here, is I was able to take traffic and put it on my help side because I started listening to audiobooks in that time. Right. Now, let's take it one step further, okay? And if you look up Dr. John F. DeMartini, you look at the breakthrough experience and the DeMartini method. I'm oversimplifying here, but one of the methods used there is you write down the struggle or the problem, and then you've got to really go deep and find the benefit in your life. So if that didn't happen, this good thing wouldn't have happened. And it goes back to, even training for fighting. They say the person that bleeds the most in training would probably not even take a shot in a real match. So you've got to understand your struggles and how they're necessary for the big game.
Yeah. And I think sometimes just understanding the struggles can be very scary because if you're not willing to take that time to actually sit with yourself and if you're not willing to actually sit with yourself and be brutally honest, then when you're actually going through, because you can write 100 things down, but if you're not like honest to yourself at your core,
yes,
and what to you, then it's gonna be a waste because you're literally just sitting in the mud. You're not figuring out, is this mud quicksand, or how can I get out? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Yes, we do, and it's an awareness thing. We don't like to face our fears, which is why people don't open up their bank statements and look at how they're spending their money and work on budgets and stick to them. It's the most common example I could think of.
And then seeking support and practicing self-compassion. This one for me was an eye-opener because it made me realize something. Before, I was not someone who would ask for help. Like if I was given a task, for some reason I felt like I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
Not because I knew everything, but because it was a way of me proving that, you know what, I'm good at this, or I'm capable of this, or you put the right person. And then I realized to myself, what is that getting me? So what if they don't think that I can do it? I know that I can do it. And then I realized, I'm like, I'm not being very kind to myself. And I was actually talking about it with my mother the other day, and I was like, you know what? because of the things that like we've been through, I realized I can be very hard on myself.
Mm.
And I don't allow myself the grace that God has given me. And then we were just talking about it, and she's like, you know what, you've been like that from the time you were young. And I said, no, I can't keep doing that. I'm not going to keep doing that because then it doesn't give me room to actually accept my mistakes or to say, you know what, even if this don't work out, you tried.
Yes.
So it's not the result, but it's facing the fact that, you know what, you tried, and that's okay. So that was a very eye-opening one for me.
And then, yeah, taking small intentional steps. It's important to take small steps because people like to just leap into the future and then very quickly their system gets shocked. Emotional and mental responses will take you right back to where you started because it's just too daunting.
Mm-hmm. So coming to terms with change and what it means to you or to me. I think for me, like it says, how to redefine your experience with change. So it's your perspective.
Mm.
It's how you see change. Like you can see it as a challenge, you can see it as an opportunity.
Right.
It's completely up to you. You make that decision, and for every conscious decision that a person makes, they have to be able to bear that responsibility.
Mm.
And I've noticed something. There's types of people that are capable of bearing a certain amount of responsibility until they're like, mm-mm, that's too heavy for me, or that's too big, or give it to someone else. And I've noticed I've never been one to shy away from responsibility, like never. And I remember I said to myself the one time, I was like, God probably gave me like these big shoulders because He knows I can carry so much. And then I was like, no, no, we can't carry everything. We need to put some things down. We need to give it to the people who are supposed to carry it.
Yes.
And that's something that for me, I've now, if you ask me to carry something that's not for me, I'll tell you straight, I'm sorry, no, I can help you, but I won't carry it.
100%. It's almost like teach a man to fish, you know, with a lot more repercussions.
The recaps that I've learned is that it's okay to change. It's it's okay to transition as long as the foundation is strong. I think that's the main point for me is that if the foundation of whatever you're going through, whatever you're doing, it's not strong, then it won't be able to last. That makes sense.
Yes, I see your notes over here. Looks like that government speech. Invite engagement on social media, thank audience, and sign off. And smile. Just leave it in there. Leave it in there. Leave it in there. Leave it in there. That's cool. That's cool. Thanks for the closing insights. For me, the closing thoughts and closing insights would be: we have to get comfortable with change. So we are habitual creatures. We like things to remain the same. Okay. Now, if things remain the same, we would never grow or progress. Everything around us is growing and progressing. So if we want to be stagnant, you're going to have a very miserable time because everything around you is changing and you're not. So you need to go with the flow and you need to grow and change. Now here's the other side of the coin, the other extreme. There are other people, and I've been guilty of this, that change too often, that over-embrace change. And then you don't actually finish and complete your tasks and achieve your goals. So there's that extreme where you're changing too often, and there's the other extreme where you're not prepared to change at all and you're so set in your ways. How you find the balance between the two is you let your goal drive you. You let your goal drive you and you look at what pops up emotionally and mentally and you're like, okay, is this congruent with my goal? And a great example of this is, in conversations with perhaps your mother. And you look at Table Mountain and you say, I want to climb that mountain. And your mother says, you can't climb that mountain. She's trying to protect you. And perhaps she means she can't climb the mountain. But nobody can tell you what you're capable of doing, okay? And her intention is to protect you, but it's stopping you from growing and seeing what you're actually capable of doing. So it's important to take advice, and then it's important to make your own decision. Make your own decision. Because when we don't make our own decision and we take advice and we're like, I'm going to do that, when things go wrong, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, we assign blame to that person that made the decision. And that relinquishes our personal power, and then we feel like we're not in control. So yeah, back to the point. You can go off an extreme and over-embrace change, but the balance that you want to have is look at your goal, and how we actually have awareness over this is measurement. So not enough people use Ink Thoughts and say, okay, I am starting here, and then in a month's time go and make a note of where you're at, and in a month's time make a note of where you're at. And people think if you go to a life coach or a therapist that something's wrong with you. All the peak performers of the world have a whole team helping them run their lives. They have somebody from the medical, spiritual, all of the different walks of life and aspects, and some of them where they have people in place to help them with their developmental areas or their weaknesses. Others, they have people helping them enhance their strengths. So society sees it as, perhaps a weakness or something's wrong with you, but you need to have these outside people helping you because you're so close to the project. And like you went in and spoke with your mother, she gave you insight of what you wouldn't know when you were younger. And she gave you this bird's eye view, and then that changed your awareness, and you're like, no, I need to make a change. You would not have seen it in that way if you didn't seek outside counsel. And then the last caveat I leave you with is, it's important to take advice from the people around you, but it's also important to take advice from professionals. There was a very funny commercial once upon a time where this guy was jogging, and he would just ask whoever's next to him for insurance advice and financial advice, and the joke of the commercial was, you can't ask a pharmacist about pet care. It just doesn't make sense. So when you are getting a mentor, as you know, make sure that they're people that have achieved that which you seek. Make sure that they're people that are walking the path that you're walking, and they're ahead of you in the game. So that's where you want to take advice from. So your mom might keep you safe and give you great advice, and that they usually do, but they may not be the be-all, end-all in terms of all of the mentorship and advice that you require. So it's important to have a team of people that you work with over a year. And it doesn't have to be every single month. It could be periodically over a year. But that's your mastermind group, essentially, or your support team. Yes. Let's leave people with an action point. Aside from reflection, a great exercise on the Ink Thoughts is get a page, draw a line down the middle, write down everything that helps your life and makes your life easier, and write down everything that's a challenge in your life. Now, just some guidance on the exercise. Everything that helps your life could be the simplest of things. And so you could have a roof over your head, running water. That's something that not everyone has. Write down all the things that help your life, all the things that hinder your life, and then it's time to actually start putting more of your awareness on all the things that help your life. That's going to start helping you transition into change. You'll start noticing that everything that helps your life is your gratitude list. You start reading that for 30 days, you're going to start facilitating change. Okay, Kendall, thanks so much for the topic and the discussion and sharing with everyone watching and myself. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Akin, for actually having me and for this discussion. It was something that I feel like people need to know.
Yes. Brought to you by Rockstar Consulting, the Thought Leader Academy, which was founded 10 years ago, and the group that we're in now was started in 2024. Okay, Kendall, thanks so much for the topic and the discussion.